everybody. Welcome to another version of the Bruce Singer podcast. I'm Bruce Singer, your host, and I just want to talk about the podcast. It's all about really, we do a lot of work in food, in food tech and agriculture, and this particular podcast is really focused on health and wellness. We have a very exciting guest. We're going to get into that, and some AI is going to be some pretty cool stuff. And it's a great podcast. No selling here. It's all about valuable information that we're providing. And also, I'm Bruce. And I'm also the CEO and founder of Canada CFOs Inc., which provides fractional CFOs and financial leadership, again, to the same space, the health and wellness and food and things like that, and in that space. So we have a very, very interesting guest today, and I'm going to talk. Cindy, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Bruce. Great to be here.
Great to have you. Okay, I'm going to talk about Dr. Cindy Gordon. Dr. Cindy Gordon is the CEO and founder of Saleschoice, and she'll tell you what that's all about. She's an author and well-published in 14 books. She's a Forbes contributor. She also teaches AI. We're going to talk a bit about that. Recipient of numerous awards and accomplishments. We couldn't put them all on here because there's a lot of them. So, and Cindy was humble. Okay, just know there's lots of awards. And I suspect that in a nutshell, we talk about Cindy as an AI innovator and a leading change maker. And it's just awesome. We're going to have a really very insightful conversation today. And again, welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you.
And thanks. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we'll jump right into it. Okay. So first, I want to know, can you share with the audience what exactly is in your business? What exactly is Saleschoice?
Sure. Saleschoice was a software as a service company. We have 2 AI software products in the market now. One does predictive forecasting on mid to large companies' data sets, mainly B2B, and we do predictive forecasting. So in other words, we say where you're going to end in terms of whether you're going to achieve a win or a loss. And we're able to do that with a lot of different AI methods combined. The second product is called MoodInsights, which is obviously what I think Bruce is most interested in terms of mental health and wellness space. And that product was born out of COVID. I read an amazing book called Permission to Feel. It was written by Dr. Mark Breckett at Yale University, and he is a top expert in emotional intelligence. And I've always been following the emotional intelligence movement and the classifiers, because we all know that people that have increased empathy are highly more collaborative. They're able to guide people and coach people, and those things I think are important. And we know that reflection and renewal is becoming one of the top criteria for CEOs and even, good governance. So we built a software product that does a check-in on how you're feeling every single day. You can go to the airport and you press a button, whether it's I'm happy or not too happy with your service. Well, it's that kind of emoji experience, but there's a really deep AI layer under when you provide your verbatims and you classify things. So more on that later, but I'm very curious in terms of, can we make an impact on employees' well-being? I think there's probably nothing more important than ensuring that our employees and our families, everybody wakes up in the morning really feeling that they're fit for duty, right?
Yeah, it's physical. It's also mental fitness, like you said. So let's talk. So let's take a step back for a minute. I'd love to hear your story, because when we're early on in life, like, things evolve, like, hey, there was an AI, like, maybe there was, you said there was in the 60s, but it doesn't come to light. So I'd like to hear part of your journey. How did you get to where you are today? Where did it start? And just share some aspects.
Well, probably I started to get more technology centric when I was probably doing my master's degree. And I did a lot of work in, my master's was in information technology. And at that point, I had learned to program. And, that was really back when the Apple technology was just coming into place. And I remember coding pixel by pixel, building software programs, and, very early days of object-oriented programming, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, I could see how much that, this technology was really going to modernize business. And then I joined a company called Trigon Systems Group. Some of you may have heard of Don Tapscott, another well-published author. And in that role, we were consulting to large companies about how to build strategies where technology could be applied. So very much strategic planning. That was in my early 20s. And then long story short, I was a vice president at Citicorp when I was 27 or something like that. So I had the whole client services team under me at the bank. And so that was a fun time. So, you're getting into the operational realities of bringing on board smart computers, right? At that time, we had dumb terminals, right? And so I went through that
Remember?
whole evolution, right? And then, obviously, I've always been connected to technology in every role. I always had a leadership role to bring in new innovations and technologies to help the business, whether I was reporting in at the business level, because I was an executive over at Xerox for about 7 or 8 years, right?
Yeah.
Director, general manager, running a portfolio. And, you always had to bring in new capabilities, in those roles. And then a partner at Accenture. So obviously you can't escape technology if you're at Accenture, right? So it just kept going, right? So I'm very comfortable in looking ahead, and did my doctoral studies, over 7 years, which obviously I was getting into complexity science then and social networking theory, and kind of looking at how did knowledge flow in an organization as a result of using collaborative technologies. So that's when I wrote a lot of the books. I was the first to define collaboration commerce, as well. And yeah, it's just I've always been playing, right?
Oh, all right.
So not
Yeah.
a surprise when I finished my role at Accenture. I jumped into a venture capital role where I was a partner in a VC fund. Again, I've always been curious, and I could see the speed in the early stage software markets, and I really wanted to get in and appreciate the mechanics, right, and learn about the legal side, really, because I hadn't had a lot of exposure to legal. I had lots of exposure to financial statements, right? Not that I was a CFO, but certainly understood balance sheets and income statements. And it just kind of kept rolling, Bruce. One thing led to the other, and then after the venture capital role, I said, you know what, I'm going to go and start some things. So I started one company called Helix. Did that for about 8 years, mainly consulting to large marquee Fortune 500 companies on transformational change and innovation, things like that. And then decided to build a software company, and here we are. The products are alive. They're in some large commercial enterprises, significant players, and we're continue to innovate. Now we're ramping up the commercialization journey in 2024. It takes time to build these products, and it takes time to sell to B2B companies, right? These are large organizations. We're not in the small business market. So yeah,
I'm
so
curious.
it's been one of those things, right? Being curious has always been the underpinning, and always staying ahead of where is the next big technology wave, right? And I'm well read, right? So I'm always reading, always reading.
Well, let's talk about two things you mentioned. I'm curious now. Why the health and wellness? Because you have two things, but I'm curious about that because that's one of my passions. And why the health and why the health and wellness area? How did that come about?
Well, you can see in companies, they have certain practices, like HR typically owns health and wellness, right?
Yeah.
And or it comes under their purview and into their benefit stream. And you could see that they do 300, well, they do employee satisfaction surveys once a year, typically in most medium and also even small businesses. They'll touch base and they'll send out a questionnaire. It'll ask questions, and then year over year, they're monitoring the results. Well, that's a lagging indicator. It's
Yeah,
not leading,
100%. Yeah.
it takes a long time. So by the time they diagnose they have a problem in a particular area, maybe they could have fixed it, a lot earlier, before
Yeah.
they get their service. So I think we have a lot of outdated methods. Then they also use pulse surveys, which are periodic, where you can do a probe. You can send out, a specific set of questions relevant to a specific initiative. So if you're launching new software, you might do a probe on how it's gone and some questions. So it's kind of like a little mini survey. You can use SurveyMonkey or
Yep.
whatever to
Yep.
pulse surveys. But and again, it doesn't offer a longitudinal line. So I could see there's a gap in the market, and I could see that companies like Calm, are more focused on the business to consumer side and, health and fitness apps, although they're starting to move into B2B offerings now. But bringing the data together, like what is the employee satisfaction score telling us, what is the pulse survey, and what does real time 7 by 20
Yeah.
data tell us? that could predict futures, right? And I know based on the work that we did with Purelator, and that was funded by the Minister of Innovation in Ontario, that we can actually see the risks in regulatory environments. We can see the risks in terms of employee turnover, the health risks. Employees, when they know they're in a secure environment, they will share a lot, and the data is anonymous, so people never know who said what. We never release it. So, but we analyze scientifically the patterns to predict risk or correlate to other data sets. So yeah, so that's an interesting space for us now. And so that's the interest there is one of passion, but it's also a very big market. Every industry could benefit from MoodInsights, right? Sales insights, the sales enablement space, there's a lot of players in there. In this particular space, it's a very new approach to solving a problem that's very real, and it's growing, right?
It's a growing problem, yeah.
Insurance claims, acceleration, the anxiety rates, the depression rates. So you start to really see, okay, this isn't going away. I mean, post-COVID hasn't obviously COVID's left us, but there is very lingering social impacts, and we're seeing it with resignations and this kind of, so it's another way to connect, I think, people working remotely as well,
I think so. Well, I think that from what I've read or what I learned is there's a huge number of population, not everybody, there's a large portion of people just on antidepressants, I mean, 30 years ago, were people on antidepressants? Every second person I speak to is on, I'm actually on an antidepressant. Okay, I'm transparent here, but that's a whole other deeper topic. It's just good for you. Okay, so let's talk because I'm curious. Talk about curiosity. Talk about to the future. So where are we going with this? Talk about your insights. I'd love to hear your insights into where everything is going on, especially AI and in the future. And if you talk about health and wellness, talk about some of those things that share your knowledge. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a few dynamics happening. One, obviously, with generative AI that's gone mainstream, with the launch of OpenAI, and actually just a few weeks ago, it's celebrated its 1 year. And I think we've seen just an explosion of companies building chatbots. I mean, there were chatbots before, but not at the speed that we're seeing now, because we've got technology that's far easier to learn from because it's got access to large language models, large data sets to learn from. So you can spin up these apps far more rapidly. So there's that one aspect. So we're going to continue to see all the knowledge that we have, like in an enterprise, we work so hard on codifying it all into databases. And, whether it was Microsoft SharePoint infrastructure or, open text document management infrastructures. Well, what's going to happen now is that all of that data is going to get scanned into generative AI models, and people are just going to ask questions, whether it's orally or through a text, and they're just going to say, find me X or produce X. I need X or Y. And the AI agents will go and create those experiences. So that's what's coming our way. It's we're going to see a huge disruption in productivity in I think a good way. There will be a lot of erosion in specific jobs, as well. So people have to plan for that, right? We are going to see significant job losses in with lawyers, with accountants, a lot of the professional services roles like poets. I can say, bring me Wordsworth and identify a few other notoriety poets and create a poem that, a human create, but an AI agent created. So there's that dynamic going on, but we also are moving into a regulatory environment with AI, and because the laws will be coming into effect probably in 2025. The EU, the European Union Act, they passed, the construct, and now it's going into the final reviews. But I suspect it'll be 2025 when that's in place. In Canada, we have something called the ADA Act, the Artificial Intelligence Data Act, obviously we've got strong privacy governance. Getting our teeth into what's considered a high impact AI risk model is really going to impact the healthcare industry, because healthcare applications would be considered high risk. If you're diagnosing something and it's wrong, or if you have a surgical robot performing, some treatment and it's miscalculated the precision of where the treatment is being given, or if you're a bank and you're, generating AI sort of approvals on a mortgage for a loan, etc. So these would all be considered high impact applications, and they're going to come under increased scrutiny, where the AI models will have to go through a third-party audit. So that's going to really add in another regulatory crunch, if I can use that term, to the existing market. So it'll slow down the innovators, and the larger companies. The sales cycles will get longer, because if you're selling a particular product, and you're going to have to also have verifications on your AI methods that are probably going to become more certified. There's definitely talk about the AI practitioners. Like, you may have a master's in AI or even a PhD, but we may set up a certified regulatory body, just like we have done for CAs. You have to pass an exam. There's an association.
Wow.
So
That's coming. That's coming.
That's all coming, right? It'll mainly be in the democratic countries. We're not going to see the same kind of adherence, to countries like China, Iran, for example. Definitely not Russia, right? Even though the ethicists worldwide at all the top universities are very, very aligned on their understanding of ethical AI and what the practices should be. They just have different governmental practices, right? And different political belief systems, right? So so we're going to go into a very interesting period of the market's matured. There's an increased appetite to understand. Boards of directors are busy getting educated on what questions they should be asking. The ICD, governance structures, at least in Canada, are offering courses. Universities have programs. So it's kind of like this, I think, perfect world, perfect storm, as well. At the same time, we're going to have a lot more issues with cybersecurity, because AI is very, very good at identifying weak spots and continuing to, intrusively bombard little spikes peeking into different see if they can find entry points into an application that could cause some havoc. So, there's the aspect of the good actors, but then there's always the bad actors, right? So it's like I said, it's a perfect world, but it also is a perfect storm brewing. And, the legal cases are going to be really significant, because there's lots of copyright issues in these data sets. A lot of vendors have just, scraped the World Wide Web, to train these large language models. And, that's not good practice, right? So people will be challenged on the efficacy of their data sets. And so
I'm curious about something you said. Let's get back to the health and wellness for a minute. You said something about, so I can actually self-diagnose. Is that like, but how do you do, like, you got to do blood work, there's other those will still stay like
well, I think you're going to see lots of different approaches. There's one company called Virtual Care that's here in Canada, that are chiropractors that are online, just diagnosing the symptoms. So again, rather than go into an office, you can talk to a doctor, or you can self-diagnose by answering a series of questions, and then have a AI could in fact prescribe, like, I'm the healthy AI agent prescribing to you the best exercises or the best, diet that would meet your symptoms. So you'd be filling out medical information because you know your symptoms. But AI chatbots can be very effective in guiding and diagnosing. So we're going to see lots and lots of virtual care applications. I mean, there's lots in the market. Even doctors, specialists. Docus AI is aggregating doctors around the world that have specializations, and so you can go in and say, I think I have a spinal risk. When you talk to a top spinal surgeon, and you can spend $200 in a phone call for an hour, but you could book it right away. You're not waiting 6 months or a year to maybe get at least some guidance, right? And then obviously, these people can provide some kind of verification that maybe helps you get into the system, right? I've got this from XYZ doctor, in the US. You get off a report printed out, and that maybe helps you break through some of the healthcare systems that are, pretty inefficient. So
I like to see a lot done to what I call preventative medicine, because I
mhm.
find the Canadian system, and this is no criticism of doctors, that's where they're trained. It's my perception is very reactive. They treat symptoms. But what about the the preventative medicine, like what to eat and all these things before it's too late to get all the like type 2 diabetes,
Well,
that's
that needs to start, and that hopefully that needs to start with more parental education, right? Because
yeah,
the little ones need to have balanced, healthy diets, and
they do,
so we need to get downstream more before, your point, the systems manifest, and that has to come to me from being a good parent, being well
yeah,
read, as well, is a major difference. Because once it's already manifested itself, it's hard to course correct, right?
correct,
These things
correct.
take time. Mhm.
But I can talk to you. We're coming to an end of the podcast. I can talk to you for hours about this stuff. Actually, I hate to, it's exciting, but it's also a bit scary to me. It's, I mean, think about it's just out of my comfort zone, You think about
Well, Bruce, wait till the cobots hit you, right? So we've
oh my
only
God,
talked about some of the dynamics, right? But we're going to move into a period where there's more and more social bots, because we don't have the medical health infrastructure to support the aging population, right?
we don't know.
And so already Japan has done a great job in introducing social bots into both healthcare facilities. So if somebody needs a diaper change, well, a robot can do that.
Yeah,
Like a cobot can do that. If someone needs a meal, a social bot can bring you your meal. A social cobot can dispense your medicine, right,
that's
accurately.
right. Especially
So,
for elderly people, if they have difficulty. I mean, my mom, she was on 30, 40 pills a day. She couldn't
right.
even,
So
and sometimes she would take it twice. She couldn't it was overwhelming for her, you
yeah,
know?
so we'll be able to buy in our lifetime social bots in our home for different reasons. I mean, there's manufacturers in Germany that I was just recently reviewing that are manufacturing the bot that when you come in from the car, it automatically turns the lights on the house. Maybe it starts the stereo music for you because it likes your favorite channel. It dispenses a nice glass of wine, and it greets you at the door, right? So, I mean, we're seeing a lot of creativity
Wow.
with intelligent homes. And, I grew up watching the Jetsons, which I loved. And the only thing I might not see is being able to have my own little car zip up into the sky. But the reality is a lot of
Maybe,
technology.
maybe it will.
No,
You know,
I
who
don't think I
knows?
see.
Who knows?
I don't think that. No, I definitely will have be able to drive a driverless car. There's no question there. But I won't be able to fly because there's far too many, complexities, and we don't have the highways in the sky for
Yeah.
travelers. But it will happen in time. It's just a matter of time.
I'd love to have another discussion. We don't have time today, but AI specifically in food. I'm thinking of food application. Like if you look at alternative protein and all the, like they can make protein out of, I've heard a story, they can make it out of air or water, and they can actually make food. I mean, it's almost like Star Trek, when the replicators, the food, like in Star
Yeah,
Trek, the food replicator.
I know AI
Think about it, it can be,
agents are
yeah,
making up recipes
yeah,
and
yeah.
pre-thinking the recipes, and guiding all kinds of business models, right? Again, these capabilities are only as good as the quality of the data. So,
Yeah.
again, let's not suffer fools gladly here. A lot of the issues we have in building an AI model that can be trusted and responsible is because 80% of the work, or we call that data wrangling effort,
Well,
out of a program is very complicated, especially if you really genuinely care about a representative data set, and you don't want to bring in data bias. And it's a very serious skill, is the data
it is.
ethics,
Yeah.
and you're going to see more and more experts in with data science, ethicist backgrounds
Well,
to validate the models. But the laws will come in. The auditors will be very happy with third-party audits, right?
oh yeah.
This will be a very serious endeavor.
Oh yeah. Cindy, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We're ending the podcast. Just one thing I want to ask you before we go. Is there anything we didn't discuss that's something that you want, any last minute words you wanted to share? Something perhaps we didn't discuss that you just might want to, you thought it may be
Sure.
important to share with
Well,
you.
I think I'm going to answer the question from maybe most people maybe listening might relate if they're a parent or they have a family member. And if you're not knowledgeable about AI, just start reading. This is the one technology that's going to be more significant than the cell phone, right? Like
Wow.
this is going to be transformative under everything. And we need to all get involved and to understand and not be afraid. It's not going away. It's accelerating. And I think it's very important that we all educate ourselves and one another. And if I can do it, anybody can. It would be my closing comment.
I keep saying mañana. I'll get the chat. I mean, obviously the simple one is chat GPT.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
learn it. I'll learn it tomorrow. I have
Just
to.
upload it, Bruce. It's really quite clever.
I know. I get it. I get it. I get it. I'll get there. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. All
Yeah,
right.
that's pretty well it. Other than have a wonderful, happy holiday. It's that festive
Same to
season.
you. Same to you. This has been awesome. And I thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And we'll get you
Thanks.
next time on the show. And have a great day, everybody. Take care. Bye bye.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce.